thanks to each of you for jumping on here. Gary Davis is the vice chair of the committee here with the chapter. He's got some issues at work. He may or may not be able to join. So we'll excuse him. Hopefully he can jump in a little bit later. So purposes of today, if you didn't see the agenda, I guess I can share that. Can you guys see the agenda here if I do this? Or are you still seeing the other sheet?
I'm still seeing the sheet you've been writing.
Yeah, do you have two screens, Jeff? Because I know sometimes if you're sharing screen, it'll only share one.
Yep.
But you might have to click and drag the one you want to share in front of the Word document that's currently visible.
Switch it real quick.
Hey Jeff, it's Gary. I finally got. I don't have Zoom, but I can talk to you on the phone.
Oh, you're on the phone with us. Good deal, sir. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. I see your agenda.
All right, there's the agenda. Can you guys see that now?
There we go.
All right. All right. Well, let's we'll just run through this. We'll do some welcomes. We're going to talk about the sessions. We have an opportunity for those that aren't aware. I think some of you are, but some aren't. The sessions at the conference, when you look at them, kind of lend themselves to commercial service airports. There's a couple sessions that are pretty relevant to us, but we see opportunity to break out during some of the sessions for the larger airports and do some GA discussion. And so that's really the purpose of today's meeting, is to go through a list of some topics and maybe come down to 2 or 3 that we can get back with the chapter on, and we'll do some breakouts when the big airports are doing their thing. And then if there's time, we'll do some general discussion. And so that's really the purpose of today. I wanted to try and get in a meeting this month before we all get together again in Wichita. So let me go back and share this topics list. So we did a survey, oh gosh, it's been a few weeks ago, out to members to see what topics they might have interest in seeing at the conference in Wichita. So I pulled all that together and listed it out here on this sheet. And so funding was a big one. Minimum standards was a big one. Airport leases. I keep hearing Title VI. It's come up in a couple of discussions and at a conference I was at. So it's kind of front and center. It's coming down the pike. So we've got this list here. If you guys want to kind of run through that and review that real quick, and then I'm very happy to take some more comments from those that are on the call today that may not have responded back to the survey. And then what we'll do at the end, we'll kind of see if we can condense to 3 topics, and the goal is to put together 45 to 60-minute sessions there in Wichita. I think we'll for sure have enough time to do 2. And I think we'll have enough time to do 3 sessions. So we'll kind of rank them from 1 to 3, and we'll do the first 2 in Wichita for sure. Hopefully that 3rd one too. So, all right. After seeing these topics here, are there any comments on any additional topics that somebody would like to see added?
This is Biale Fomocom with Albuquerque International Support. Hi, everybody.
Yep. Hello, welcome.
Right. Asset management is an area where a lot of airports are trying to make the best use of their software programs to keep up with its maintenance. Also considering the large investments in airports that you see across the country. So we are looking towards getting an asset management system in place that will give us a good amount of of time or projection on the lifespan of those assets. So I'm not sure if other airports do have a good system in place for that, but it's something that we are interested in. I do not know how popular that is with other airports.
Excellent, excellent. Do you see the asset management? I know you guys have, do you have 2 or 3 airports? I forget your system. You have 2, I know you have Double Eagle, right?
We have
One with
Double
some-
Eagle, and then we have the Sunport here.
Okay, so you have the 2. Are you planning to roll this asset management system out among both your airports, or are you concentrating on your commercial service airport? I'm curious.
Yeah, it will be for all the airports because, like at Dancing Eagle, they have some new hangars that are being built there. All those will need to be incorporated in that system, so that we can keep a better track of it. And even some of the penthouses, air handling unit, we have some at the Dancing Eagle, I mean the Double Eagle. So we'll need to include that in that system.
I certainly see the value in it. I really do. And I can see the opportunity. So, okay, we'll put that on the list. Thanks for the comments there. A couple other people joined in. We're going through some lists here of topics that we hope to condense down into 2 or 3 topics that we can do as breakout sessions in Wichita at the annual conference. As if you were late on joining us. So what other topics are of interest to you all that you don't see on this list that we got from our survey that we did a couple weeks ago? Any others?
But
I would echo.
sorry.
I-
Is Diale again?
Yeah.
The access control office on all the airports usually go through this badging process. And I'm just curious to know, someone who is just going into my 3rd year here in the airport environment, I'm not sure if there are best programs out there that can integrate this badging process. And the best way to start the rebadging process and ensuring that it is error-free and is not as stressful as what we have experienced here at the Sunport. We are just concluding the tail end of our rebadging process in the next 3 days. So I'm just curious out there.
So most of our GA airports, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but when you get into some larger metropolitan areas, they may be a little different. But most of our GA airports don't have any badge access. We may have some keys. So in our particular case, we have some keys that we issue, cards that we issue out for vehicular gates, but we don't badge tenants. We don't have side areas. We don't have sterile areas or anything. So we have access control, but not positive identification, side of badging. We don't have those requirements, and a lot of our GA airports aren't going to be doing that. So security and access control are big deals. So other comments?
Oh, I was gonna ask, are you talking about like the ramp, excuse me, not the rat back program with the FBI for like criminal history record checks? Are you talking about like a streamlined way to like process fingerprints and applications, or?
Yes,
Okay.
all of that.
I would perhaps reach out to like some of the larger airports like Denver, Dallas, Fort Worth International, Dallas Love, Phoenix, because I know they do those kinds of things. When I was at Lubbock, which was a small hub commercial service airport, when I did airfield operations there, but I also did badging. We had separate systems for separate aspects. For example, the computer that did all the fingerprint scanning was a very old Windows XP computer, and Windows XP isn't supported anymore, but because it was so popular, it's, it's Windows XP is still with us. My AWAS computer over there is Windows XP based. And so there was that. And then there's, of course, the clearinghouse on AAAE, the airport security clearinghouse. I don't remember exactly what it was called. I remember clearinghouse is one of the terms. There was that part of it. And then the access control system was its own system, and the badge printer was its own system. That was another Windows XP process. So when I was there, they were all separated out. I agree 100%. It is very prone to error because there are so many different systems and they change so much that, errors are easy to make. Now we took every step to, curtail those, but no, I understand wholeheartedly. But I would reach out to your larger airports like Phoenix, Denver, Dallas, maybe Houston, and see what they do, because you're going to find more of stuff like that at your larger airports versus your smaller airports. Because at the larger airports, they'll have, offices dedicated to that only.
Yeah, I would agree. The chapter just started an operations committee. There's another word with it, but it's ops and technical services, something like that. That would be a great committee for these questions. Those are going to be your non-hub and bigger airports. And so they're going to have access control and badging, SIDA, TSA, they're going to have all that in their, that's in there, going to be in their mission and their statement for their committee. So that would be a good one to maybe touch base with them on.
Well, I got Josh going out.
What committee
All
was that,
right.
Mr. Kidu?
I'm sorry?
What committee did you mention?
It's the operations, maybe technical services. I forget. Let me make a note. I will email you with the information on that and the chair of that committee. It's a brand new one. I just saw their first meeting announcement on the website the other day and I missed it. I was hoping to get onto it, but let me get that info and we'll send it out to you. How about that?
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I saw another couple of people join. We're just looking at topics for our GA breakout session opportunities in Wichita. Are there any other session ideas that you don't see on this list that you want to mention real quick? All right, hearing none, I am wide open to a discussion on how we might condense these, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 into the top 3. I'll open it up, and if you guys have some comments, some desires based on situations at your airport or maybe situations within your state or the industry as a whole that really make the topic pretty important and pretty pressing. I know Scott had some comments early as we were all just starting to hop on the meeting. So Scott, I may ask you to jump first and talk a little bit about your topic that you were discussing early.
Oh, I was also going to echo the asset management topic. I know our city is just implementing asset management citywide, and I would certainly be interested in knowing how airports are utilizing asset management, because I'm trying to figure that out myself. Yeah, we were talking about minimum standards. I'm certainly having some issues at our airport in terms of how to enforce those, and I'd be curious as to how other GA airports enforce their minimum standards. That'd be a topic of interest to me.
Yep. That's a pretty standard one. It's one that whenever we get together with FAA, they typically have their session on it, and then we all, it's the same thread. We may have different parts or components of it, issues associated with it, but that's a good one. And I would agree. I think that being one of the 3 would be one that would apply to everybody, and one that I think everybody could join in and participate on. We've all got the issues and we've all had trials, and so Thoughts from others? I really like that one. I'm curious if the rest of the group would concur that that should probably be one of our three.
I concur, and I would say, I would call it rules and regulations, minimum standards, and enforcement of, or enforcement thereof.
When you talk about rules and regulations and minimum standards, they're commonly called guiding documents at that point. But that might also include design standards and those sorts of things. But they all fall into about the same boat.
Or there was a blanket term. Hang on, I gotta find it. It's in my draft rules and regulations. I believe the acronym is SASO.
That's a specialty service operator in the airport. That's somebody that's a commercial service operator who's less than a full FBO.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yep, that's a good one. Okay, I would agree. We could do a workshop on, I mean, there are workshops on this.
Primary
So
management and compliance documents. That was it. PMCD, primary management and compliance documents. I knew it was something.
So last year at the National Airport Conference in Spokane, before the conference began on Monday, from Friday through Sunday, and there was something to do with the best practices in airport management. And that topic included minimum standards, airport leases, and best practices. Let me see. It also included that SASO component of aviation management. So if they are kind of business practices, while the airport land development is all on planning or business development. So if you look at the first 4 bullets, they all look to me, I mean, my background is kind of interested, planning, economic development, business development. Those two can be combined, and I don't know how we will call that.
yeah, we could, again, we could have a 2 or 3 day long workshop on just this subject. And so I think the goal would maybe be to condense it. I mean, we're going to have to condense it. So I heard enforcement. Scott, you brought that up as, you know, one of the parts of when you were talking. Is that's something that, just speaking for myself, we don't talk a lot about. We talk a lot more about what they are, what's in them, what's new, what's changing. We never get to the part where we talk about enforcement and how airports are winning the battle or losing the battle. How would you all feel about maybe spending 45 to an hour talking about specifically enforcement, maybe having a couple of case studies, a couple of situations where an airport, you know, tells their story, or if we find a professional services consultant that might give us some examples, not to be named airport, but tells us some stories. How would you all feel about that?
I think that'd be a great one, because enforce this, Gary. Because you look at some of the stuff that, you know, some of it kind of like squatters. You know, you see some stuff in a hangar and you tell them that you got to take that out, and then you don't see them for a little bit. Then they never end up taking it out. So how do you remove them or it? And you're right. We never get to, we talk about the compliance and what you can and can't do, but we never get to that point where it says, how do you do that piece? So I think that would be an excellent topic on enforcement. Or
Yeah. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, Jeff, that's a good one. I haven't looked at the agenda for the conference. Is the FAA participating in significant ways for? My thought was to either have like Gary Loftus or or somebody from Central Region participate maybe in a panel along with maybe some airports that have been through it?
And he's the
we could
first
certainly
guy that
invite-
came to my mind too, Tom.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we could certainly invite him. So this is a cool conference. We're going to be in Kansas, which is not often enough. I really enjoy being up there, but we're in a different FAA region. And so I would anticipate we're going to see some FAA folks from both regions with us up there, which is great. So I just don't know for sure if Gary is invited, and I don't know who his counterpart is in that region of FAA. Scott, do you know who your compliance guru up there is?
Yeah, I just talked to him yesterday. The current compliance officer, I think, is out on leave. So they've got a land specialist filling in right now. So it's probably not a opportune time to have somebody from FAA Central come and speak.
Gary used to be our insert inspector. He does a little bit of cert inspection on the side as well. So we've gotten to know him here. I'm very happy to reach out to him and see if he would either accept an invitation or maybe give some feedback on a couple people. I mean, we have consultants out there that do minimum standards and rules and regs specifically. We've had them. I know others have had them, and so there's 2 or 3 that just immediately come to mind. So that's a question too. Do we want the format of these breakouts? Do we want a formal presentation? Yes or no? Do we want, you know, to me, with this amount of time, 45 to 60 minutes, we don't have a lot of time for multiple presentations. And so maybe one presenter with a facilitator that can just kind of keep it on track, guide it. And that presenter could be an airport or a consultant. But the important thing is that we're just all in the room and it's facilitated at the end of the day. Maybe we have a presenter that puts a couple slides up and just kind of gets us, you know, into the topic and introduced and tease it up for us. And then we all do some discussion. That, in my experience, that's been the best sessions at conferences is our roundtable discussions where there's a topic and it's introduced, but we don't have a hard agenda and it's not just sitting and listening. So I'm happy to reach out to Gary. I'm happy to do that. He may be in Galveston next week. I'm trying to remember. Gary,
He will be in Galveston. He's on the program. I've got my copy right here, actually.
Excellent. So we'll do that. We'll reach out to Gary and get his thoughts on that. And if he can come, that'd be great. That'd be great. And I'll kind of
Jeff,
explain.
you
Go
might
ahead.
be able to
Yeah.
double dip with him too, because for OAOA, he did a great little roundtable session on best practices for leasing. And we discussed reversions and clauses and what you could do, what you couldn't do, and he gets tasked with all of that. So, I mean, if best practices on leases and that sort of thing is on the fence, that might elevate it a little bit, and you get a twofer out of Gary.
That I agree. I agree. If that wants to be one of our other topics, giving him more justification to be in
Yeah.
to be
You
in
can
Wichita,
ask
if we get
Kelly.
to.
Let's see, was it Kelly? No. I'm sorry. I was thinking Kelly was with Alexis was in on that one as well. And I thought he did a great job on both of them. He's just a font of knowledge.
I agree. All right. Okay. So what I'd like to do is come up with our 3 sessions, and then we'll find what I call champions, the leader, whether they moderate it or not, but somebody that'll take the session and kind of help it come together. And so be thinking if that's one that you would like to take ownership of. So I'm gonna scale right into what PVP was saying. Airport leases and best practices. That's another topic that's on the list. That's another relevant to everybody. It seems to be it was at our FAA conference. It's going to be in Galveston. It's going to be at TxDOT. It'll be, it's all relevant to us almost every day. Is that another good one to add to that to that list, or is there a couple other topics on here that you think are more unique and we don't hear about all the time that you may want to throw in instead? Thoughts?
I've got one. You could probably take best practices on airport land development, airport leases and best practices, and initiatives to attract small cargo operators. You could probably lump those together and kind of call it like, getting and retaining airport stakeholders.
Okay. What's the group's thoughts on that?
Well, I think that just personally, I think there's enough to talk about in leases and, what was the other part, on land development. And that's really up Gary's alley. And I think the attracting small cargo operators is pretty cool, as well. But one of the things we got into this week in Oklahoma, and I don't know if Tom, you were in that session or not, but, we had a real engaged discussion with Gary on sweetheart deals. How you live with those, how do you try to do right after those, have been implemented, and it was a pretty beneficial discussion, even for those with some gray in our hair.
Yeah, very good. I wasn't able to attend that, unfortunately. Feel like that was one of the main ones I missed out on there at the end. And I know there's a particularly hot one going on in Arkansas at the moment, so that might be why it's front and center. But yeah, I think that, like Peter said, that's probably worthy of a session on its own for the most part. There's a lot to cover.
So maybe leases and land development, and
I
see where
think so.
we can.
I think so, because leases, it's going to be hard to talk about leases without talking about 163, and it's going to be hard to talk about land development without talking about the Exhibit A and what's shown on there, and all that stuff starts to tie together. We didn't have much of a set agenda. Actually, we had some prompts from a presentation that was given just before his session that teed a number of those things up. But I think a free-form discussion can do well on both minimum standards, rules and regulations, and land development and leasing best practices. And those are great for around the table.
And it's rapidly over the past few years just become a lot more beneficial for me, and I think others see it too, where you just have a subject and somebody throws out, well, here's a problem I'm having, and then everybody just, there's a great discussion that comes out of that. And about 10 minutes into it, a couple people.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jeff, I stepped on you there.
It's all good. It's all good. People just loosen up after a few minutes, and when they start to feel more comfortable, and having Gary in the room helps. It sounds like that was a good discussion where some people would say, I'm not going to talk about that with FAA in the room. And if you can all get comfortable with it and feel good that you can have that discussion with TxDOT or FAA or your Kansas State folks in the room, because these are real problems and real issues, and you can sweep them under the rug and not work, put them off, and that'll just cause you more problems, obviously, in the future. So I like that. Okay. Any other thoughts?
Hey, Jeff, this is Eric Pratt with Mesquite Metro Airport.
Yes.
I just had an idea, kind of sitting here thinking about, I guess, struggles that general aviation airports have. And one of the big ones for a lot of them out there, and I would say most of them out there, is going to be justifying funding. Because with us and our sponsors, we're always going up against public works, public safety, trying to get what funds we can for that airport development. And so the topic that came to mind would be something like understanding the economic impact of a GA airport. And they could talk about what kind of goes into evaluating that economic impact that it has, the statistics, the values, the importance of keeping up with the tax roll, and what that means to a general community. looking at overall revenue, your grant assurances, trying to be as self-sustaining as possible. And then also possibly looking at different ways that other airports have basically made a case to their city council or their elected officials for that funding. And I will tell you one thing that I did recently that I hadn't heard of anybody else doing is I started noting every corporation that was flying into my airport. And I started using that list whenever I'd go to city council. And with that, I would put in there a total economic value that these companies had, which or the total number of assets they controlled, which I stopped at like $1.6 trillion. And that really opened up some eyes. And I think it just might be fun to kind of hear what are other airports doing or pitching, what stats are they collecting in order to, again, justify this with their airport sponsor, elected officials.
I love that.
Just to add on to what Eric was saying, so I have a background in economic development, labor statistics, doing that kind of cost-benefit analysis and impact of businesses or setting like the hospital or the airport to the community. So I had been thinking on how do we estimate the impact of, let me say, the Sunport to the Albuquerque economy or to the state economy. And I wasn't sure on how to collect that data since airports they are an entity in itself, it's a whole city in itself, and the information is not out there. So when I was borrowed since January 26 to help in the airport and the access control office, and I started keeping up a spreadsheet of all the companies that work here, how many employees they have, if they have if they are hiring new employees, how many are those? If they are retaining their employees, how many are those? The only thing I don't have now is the wage. How much these employees are earning, or how much these companies are paying these employees. Then from there, we can do like a cost-benefit analysis. So the reason why I'm saying this is because collecting data to show the impact of an airport, whether it is commercial or general aviation or a smaller airport, if you do not have the names of the company, the employees that they hire, their wage rate, it becomes difficult, even like with an impact model, to do that type of analysis. But I'm glad that I had the chance to do it here. And if someone wants the impact of the Sunport now, I can just get the wage and calculate that easily. That's all I wanted to say.
Good comments. Good comments. Yeah, Eric, that's fun that you bring that up. I think as projects get more expensive, we're all gonna have some well, I just had some shell shock with our even our 10% match to the grant, for crying out loud, is a huge number. And it's just, those costs are just gonna grow, and you're right, we're up against other departments and other aspects of our cities, and in my case, the county, of, all the needs that are out there, and the elected officials have a tough time making choices and priorities, and got to go to taxpayers and find money through bonds and through tax rate, and it's a tough atmosphere. I love that topic.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that I'm looking at trying to compile a stat on this year whenever I do my budget presentation is basically saying, hey, for every dollar that you invest, this is what comes back. Whether that's 50 cents or hopefully $1.50 is what I'm hoping for, something where you actually get a return. But I'm looking at trying to calculate that sort of stat. And again, I think too, it'd be great to just see what everybody else is doing. I mean, somebody out there might be doing something that just makes perfect sense for all of us to copy and help us all, like I said, get funding and keep growing and developing.
There's a company called Airport Monitoring Systems that provides an economic development model for your airport. And I just installed their system that tracks ADSB data. You can plug in number of employees at your businesses at the airport, and it's all a web-based platform, and it's pretty cool.
That is really cool.
That's
All right, I
really
wrote
cool.
that down.
Like that. I'm kind of a data junkie myself.
So that's an ADSB. I mean, that's tracking your ops and everything, but they're adding they're adding more to it than just that. They're trying to equate some economic impact from that data, it sounds like. Is that correct, Scott?
Yeah, they have a proprietary model that gets generated from your air traffic data. I'm going to have them come to our Kansas Airports conference and present in October of this year because it's really cool.
Yeah, that sounds good. Well, thoughts? Do you want that to be the third topic? How to promote your airport, how to justify your airport, how to increase the justificate, I don't know what to title it. I like the subject. I like
Airport funding justification.
Eric, what's a good title? You brought it up.
What? I brought it up and explained it because I didn't have a title.
Do you think we can combine the asset management with that economic metrics that he just mentioned, that airport system? Because if you look at the airport assets, even in terms of an accounting term, an asset is what we own. In this case, our equipment, our facilities, our buildings, which also ties in with making a case to city council or to the county government why we need to build another building for, let me say, the expansion of the customer service center. So they are all intertwined, but you will need to have a consultant with a good system who is able to justify why those assets are needed and a case for more by showing the impact studies, an economic metric or system that will justify more assets in that airport.
That sounds good too. I just took a shot at the title. What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I might put in there is like understanding the airport economic impact. So that way, hopefully they realize that we'd be kind of talking about, again, what goes into an economic impact study and what it is that you can do to affect the numbers, or I guess I shouldn't say affect, but get the numbers right.
I think we could do
About
it more
something like
simple.
that.
I think we could actually say understanding your airport's worth. And that's more of a catchy title. I mean, just my thought, but I'm not sure we're driving the boat further down the river for you, Jeff. I have a feeling we keep taking all these tangents, and I'm the biggest tangent taker of the bunch.
I was going to suggest show me the money.
It's all about the Benjamins.
There you go. There you go. I think that's what our elected officials all say under their breath when we're up there asking for money.
Yeah.
Well, there's three topics right there. How do y'all feel about those three as compared to anything that's on the list or anything else that's out there?
Looks good.
I like them.
The only comment I would have is, and I think these three are just fine. Some conferences have just a generic roundtable discussion for a topic, or, you know, for example, NAC AAAE's fall big conference, they have different size airport, just roundtables, and it's you know, an hour and 20 minutes or so of, you know, the floor is yours, just say whatever, you know, bring up whatever you want and we all kick it around. So these, though, if we do it in a discussion format, these are going to be great. A lot of opportunity here. I think that we could all share some info, and I think the trick's going to be to try to get folks into the room with us that have the experience. You know, hopefully Gary, for example, could join us, but if he couldn't, then we're going to need to get some of our airports. You know, Scott's going through an issue, so he's obviously going to be bringing up and having some comments, but others that have gone through these issues, whether current airport or past airports, just get people in the room with us so we have a good discussion. I told Logan I didn't want to take folks away from some of the big keynote speakers and some of the, you know, some of the other sessions that, you know, we don't want to dilute anything, but that's why we discussed, and we got to 2, maybe 3 of the other sessions that we could break away from and be more relevant for us. And so that's something that we want to make sure that we're cognizant of. You know, our sponsors and exhibitors and folks that help us with the conference, we don't want them to have to cut in half and wish that they were in one and couldn't be in another or something. So I'm very cognizant of that too. But anyway, I like these three. I think they're good ones. I really do. If there's no more real comments on changing these or tweaking these, I think now if we could find a champion for each of these, somebody that would either lead it, moderate it, or just agree to go find the moderator and maybe somebody to help facilitate a discussion. And that I open it up for discussion, but I think it's more, and I said this earlier, it's better to have a couple slides and a lot of discussion than to just sit there for 30, 45 minutes and listen to a PowerPoint and a presentation. So there's not, in my view, there's not a lot of preparation that needs to go into this. This is really just going to be experiences and, you know, maybe some, if we do have a presenter, it'll be some pictures and, you know, here's what we did, or here's what I saw and things like that. So I don't know that this is going to be a hard ask for anybody to be involved with this or anything to get, you know, that's going to take a lot of time. Just in my case, the nerve to sit in front of a big group of people and moderate something. So thoughts on the three? Is there anybody that has a desire to grab one of these and lead the development, work with Gary and I? Gary and I'll kind of watch over these 3 sessions for the next few weeks and just make sure that that it's all going to come together and that we've got everything that that the session needs to be successful. Are there any sessions that anybody wants to grab on? Don't be shy.
I'll help any way you'd like, Jeff, just wherever.
Okay.
I won't make it to this conference, but if I can be of any assistance, feel free to reach out.
There's some other folks on our committee that we can reach out to that I think will be there that just aren't on the call today as well. I'm happy to take one. I could do I could do any of the three. Eric, are you able to come to Wichita?
You better come.
I am right now I'm planning on taking my accreditation, my final interview that Saturday. And I
Nice.
have not committed just yet to how much of the conference I'm going to be at. And I will say that's going to be dictated by my wife because I am traveling a lot around then. Let me get back to you.
Okay, got you on that. That's exciting news. Good to hear. Good to hear.
Yeah, so
Right. I will. I'll grab rules and regs and minimum standards since we're talking about compliance and stuff. I'll see Gary, hopefully see Gary Loftus next week here in Galveston at our conference. So I'll take number one. Is there anybody, and I realize, Wichita's a ways away from where I'm at and some of you all as well. And so if it's just not on your radar and you're not able to be at that, that's completely understandable. So is there anybody else that wants to take one of these on? If not, Gary and I can make some phone calls and we'll find some folks to do it. PVP could do one,
So
if needed, obviously.
Jeff, for me, I like that topic number 3, and I will be at the conference. I will be arriving on Friday night, but I am not sure in terms of the airport environment, who do I call to who has the experience to demonstrate the economic impact of airports to make that case.
Okay.
If Eric can give me some contacts, I do not mind following up with them. I do not know what the expectation of our role is as far as getting someone to talk on this topic during the conference, whether there's going to be any incentives for them to come, whether they will be paid, or if they are going to come, if they are not affiliated with the airport. Because getting knowledge of the economic impact is different, and also understanding how airports operate and how to identify the costs and the benefit is also different. It's 2 different things.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Hey, this is Greg Chenoweth, retired airport guy, but I keep my finger in what's going on. Anyway, to your question there, back when I was managing airports, there were lots of consultants in the world that loved figuring that stuff out for people. One of them is, I suspect, will be there, Kaufman, because they've got offices just down the road in Kansas City. But some of the other like engineering type consultants, Mead and Hunt, gosh, any of them, I think just look at the exhibitors list and see who's going to be showing up that's going to have people there anyway, and maybe do a reach out to them to see if they could have one of their financial experts sit in or help you somehow.
I think that sounds good.
Jeff, and I'll volunteer myself to help you find speakers on any of those topics. If you're having trouble at all, number of people are dancing around in my head. Oh, that could be said at any time, but
You're
one
fine.
thing I was
That's
going to
awesome.
bring up is that the state of Texas, with Texas A&M Transportation Institute, they actually created a website that shows all your general aviation airports. I think it might even include your commercial airports in Texas, and you can input the data yourself, and it actually spits out an estimated economic value. So like Texas A&M Transportation Institute, TTI, might be a good group as well if they're there to reach out to them.
I also just posted in the chat a live link at that data system I was talking about for my airport. So you can go and check it out and see what this company's product has to offer.
Excellent.
Dave, I'm not sure if Jeff Barwick would be coming, but Jeff would be a great resource to talk on some of those economic topics.
He'd be great. And I believe he is coming.
Well, we should take advantage of that, Jeff. Especially, and I was thinking
Okay.
about the CTI stuff.
Even if he's there, and even if he could help us get a TTI person to come as well, that just tag team, because I agree.
Yeah.
They're in the middle of that for the state. Scott, is there anybody in Kansas that's done specific airport economic impact study and reporting lately for you guys? Do you know?
Well, KDOT Aviation has done it in the past. They did do some kind of cool videos for, I think, about every Kansas airport that they've posted on YouTube with recent data that I've been sharing to my economic development folks. It's just shows all the flights coming and going from your airport, and it's based on filed flight pass. That's something that, maybe, I know Ray Seif, our new aviation director, is coming to the conference. Maybe that's something he would display or talk about.
Hey, Jeff, Dave Fulton, I'll touch base with Jeff Borwick. He's on the road. I'm not a creative person, but I'll give you an example of what I think was very creative. McKinney, years ago, their economic development people put out a release or notification in some form that the personal property tax on business aircraft at McKinney sent 300 people, 300 students, paid for 300 students in the public schools every year. That's the kind of way to try to get to Eric's idea there of how do you compete with the other departments of government when it's so difficult, when at the smaller communities you're competing against filling potholes and stuff like that. I mean, it's a very tough thing. It was a great question that he wrote, I think Eric brought up, but I thought that was one of the most creative ideas. Everybody's got a kid, and it's hard to connect the benefit of an airport to 99% of the people who will never be in a general aviation airplane.
Yep, that's a huge challenge. I think it's a great topic that Eric brought forward. It's front and center.
But I'll let Jeff know
Center.
that there might be somebody might be reaching out to him about doing something on that.
Okay. Hey, Gary, I'm going to put your name on the second one to kind of keep watch over. And I'll work with you on it too, but I didn't spell Jeff Berwick's name right, but I'll fix that. And then, so I'm going to work with the first one. Dave, I'll work with you on the third one. After you reach out to Jeff, let you and I touch base next week.
Okay.
In Galveston, you'll be in Galveston as well?
Absolutely.
For sure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then hey, Gary, are you going to be in Galveston?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think that'll be a good timing to, that'll be mid to later in the week. So we should all be able to do a powwow and get these squared away and get our formats. So unless there's any objection, the thought behind these are going to be somebody to tee up the topic. And in the case of, if we get Gary Loftus, maybe a little more teeing up the topic since he's, in the middle of it. But then be the subject matter expert of many in the room that can kind of kick that we can all kick ideas off of and discussion off of that will have some experience with it. So I think that's our goal, not a full on 30-minute PowerPoint out of anybody, but we're like a 2 to 5 minute worth of teeing up the subject, and then we can sit and talk about it. Any objections to that? This is the first time we've done this, so we're just going to try it out and see how it works. If it works good, then there's other opportunities that the chapter does conferences that we could do some of this stuff and try and bring more of our GA folks to some of these meetings as we do them around the chapter, you know, around the states that we're in. So any objections to that? Does that sound okay?
I like the idea.
All right. Okay, I think I've got what we need to pass on to Logan. We may tweak the session names just a little bit. If Logan says they're too long, or if we just feel like we need to do that, but these are the topics. Thank you all for taking the time to brainstorm with us here a little bit on Friday afternoon. I really appreciate it. If you're not registered for Wichita, please do. If you're considering it, please, we'd love to see you there. It's a great conference. It's one of my favorites. So if you've never been, put it on your radar. It's a good one. But being up in Wichita, up in the Kansas area, it's always a lot of fun. There's so much aviation, such cool stuff in Kansas and in Wichita that it's always a great time up there, and then a great airport to be at. So any other thoughts or questions? Our next committee meeting will be at Wichita on Tuesday morning, about 8 o'clock in the morning before the general membership meeting. We get together for about an hour or so. That'll be our next meeting. And we'll just chat. It'll be over breakfast, so nothing formal.